Before we jump into Shabbos, we're going to... You can use it, I have mine. Audience. I'm reading from the Daily Halacha. Okay, as an every Rosh Chodesh, women refrain from doing halacha, which means they're off from doing laundry. And therefore, if it needs to get done, the husband is to be the one to do so, to turn on the machine, etc. Also, sewing is avoided. We don't cut our hair or nails today. In general, we try to always do that anyways on Erev Shabbos, but on Rosh Chodesh we have a azhar, a warning of the Yehuda Chassid to avoid doing so. We eat the festive meals. We discuss in our Hanukkah shiur that today you're supposed to add even more to the meal than you would do to Hanukkah, so it's supposed to be a super special meal today. Also to cover Rosh Chodesh. We do not visit cemeteries. We say the Tehillim corresponding to our year. If you're 13, you say 14, Kapitel Yadalit, etc. With the commentary of Rashi in a way that it's split up. You'll finish the entire Kapitel with Rashi in 12 months. This is a Messiah tradition dating all the way back to Achiyai Hashilaini, Shem Tov, in the name of Achiyai Hashilaini.
Women working includes dishes?
No, it does not. Okay, just the regular davening and benching. Laws, forgot Yalavi of a Shachris Mincha, you do have to repeat Shemina Esrei. And however, at night you do not have to. So last night, if you forgot, or if somebody forgot on Friday night, they would not have to repeat Shemina Esrei. Regarding Musaf, if somebody already davened Musaf, and now they just remembered, oh my gosh, I didn't say Yalavi, they also do not have to repeat Shemina Esrei because they already mentioned Rosh Chodesh and Musaf, and therefore we do not make them go back and repeat. And benching, we never repeat benching if you forgot Yalav, but if you remember before, continuing with Hateva Meitiv, you say that special blessing for Rosh Chodesh.
You can make up the Musaf in Daven Mincha today and then go backwards in Daven Musaf if you didn't do it? Or just Daven Musaf?
Musaf can be prayed the Eved until sunset.
Oh, okay.
You have to pray it until the 7th hour of the day, 1 hour after Chatzos. Regarding what to daven first, Musaf or Mincha, there's a few different approaches. Bottom line, Halach L'maisa, we follow the approach of Kabbalah, which is to first daven Musaf and then Mincha, not the opposite. But according to Halacha, a private individual who forgot to daven Musaf on time would need to precede the davening of Mincha and only then do Musaf. Practically, as I brought in my Rosh Chodesh Sefer, we follow the Kisvei Arizal, we always precede Musaf.
Musaf first.
Okay, the laws of Mukseh. Here we are, back at it. We went into candlesticks. I believe we were up to, this is what we were up to. We began going through the case examples of Mukseh relating to candles and candlesticks and lamps and candelabras, etc. No, right, this connects very much to this past Shabbos Hanukkah. We're moving around, we're skipping around. It's not organized in one area. It's in a few different samanim. Okay, let's just recap. We're still in the middle of the category called Kli Shemalachtu L'Isser, or as it's coined in my book, MMI, Mukseh Machmas Isser, even though in truth, the real Mukseh Machmas Isser is a different category, but it just sounds the same. It's Mukseh due to the fact that you can't use it on Shabbos. It's forbidden to use it on Shabbos. Kli Shemalachtu L'Isser, Mukseh Machmas Isser, etc. So we were going through many different cases and examples of things that would fall under this category, of which we rule that you cannot move it to save from damage, but you may move it to make a kosher use of it on Shabbos, or to move out of the way, it's in your way. And we've been going through different cases to see what category of Mukseh would he fall in. So when we discussed before regarding candles, candlesticks, lamp, candelabras, what we said thus far is as follows. Lit candles are completely Mukseh if they were lit before Shabbos. That's going to be dealt with in greater depth in a different chapter dealing with the laws of basis, etc. Then we have candles that were not lit. So for example, the menorah that had candles lit on it obviously would fall under what we just said earlier, completely Mukseh, and that's why we had the whole debate or discussion of where should you light your Hanukkah candles this past Shabbos, because you can't move them, and can you place something on a chair, on a table, to then make the chair or table not Mukseh. And what I've always said is that in the case of danger, the Mechaber writes explicitly in the Shulchan Aruch and the laws of Hanukkah, place it on your table and it suffices. So if anyone is unsure that maybe their menorah is not in a safe place for Shabbos, don't take chances, put it on your table. That's what I did. I lit my menorah on a table.
Eating table, your dining table.
It wasn't my eating table, but it was a table.
Where else would we do it? Everybody does it on some kind of surface.
Well, everyone does on a surface, but initially the menorah is supposed to be between 3 to 10 tefachim from the ground. Most tables are way over 10 tefachim, even if you go like the Chazon Ish, the 10 tefachim is 100 centimeters. Plus the height of the menorah, so definitely your flame is going to be above 10 tefachim. Nonetheless, in the time of danger, so you do. Okay. Then we discussed, and we went into a very interesting discussion regarding an unlit candle. What's its status? And we said that an unlit candle is Kli Shemalach D'Le'aseh, meaning you may move an unlit candle, a candle that was not lit before Shabbos, for the sake of its space, or for the sake of doing a kosher use with it, like to scratch yourself in your back if you have a long candle that will reach, and assuming it'll take care of the itch. We then explained how the Aruch HaShulchan and others who go in his approach say, what are you talking about? And when do we say an item is only a mini Mukseh, a MMI category Mukseh, which has all these leniencies, if it has a probable and designated other use? But if it has no use, what use does a candle have other than to light it? Then it's completely Mukseh. And we brought a proof of that from the Alter Rebbe, who writes paper is completely Mukseh on Shabbos, because since you can't write it, it loses the status of it as a vessel. At the conclusion, though, we completely threw this out and negated it, as first of all, we have an explicit ruling in the Alter Rebbe, which we read from in 308, Halacha Lamed Gimel 33, that candles are MMI or Kli Shemalach D'Le'aseh, may be moved for use or space. And then we went...
The conflict and the serious Machmir approach that you said that got thrown out anyway, why didn't they acknowledge that the candle can be used as a back scratcher?
Because they say it's not what it's meant to be used for. You can make up uses, but what's it meant to be used for? What's a probable and common use? They're saying it's not a probable and common use. So it's completely Mukseh. So what we explained was that something is only considered completely Mukseh if it was never turned into a use on Shabbos. It was never turned into a kli, a vessel. But something that was formed was turned into a vessel, and even if its primary use or common use is no longer applicable on Shabbos due to the prohibition, nonetheless, it would not turn it into being completely Mukseh. It would be a Kli Shemalach D'Le'aseh. So therefore, we said, for another example was a pen. Even though a pen or pencil has no other use than for writing, what other use does it have? Nonetheless, it is not Mukseh. According to Halacha, it's the category of Kli Shemalach D'Le'aseh Mukseh, which may be used for a kosher use, such as to scratch your back, or to move from its space. That's what we concluded with, and this is, we mentioned that this debate is a major conflict in the laws of Mukseh, as so many items would fall under this debate, which one side would say it's completely Mukseh because there's no other common use, while the other side would say, no, it's not Mukseh, as nonetheless it still is a vessel.
It could be used somehow for something. That has to be included there?
No, just the fact that you made it into a vessel, okay? And it has a physical use. It's not like physically it's immobile. It just doesn't have a common use. You don't commonly use a candle for other things. But it could be used for other things. Just the fact that it could be used for other things and it was turned into a vessel before Shabbos already makes it not be upgraded to the higher status of Mukseh.
What does that phrase mean, made it into a vessel before Shabbos?
You took wax, you took oil, you took kerosene, you took whatever it is that they have. What do they make today? Candles, something with a P. And paraffin?
I don't know. That's the word you.
I said kerosene. So you turned it into something. That's not its pure state. They don't dig in the ground and find these beautiful long candles in there. They don't grow on trees. Someone made it.
Okay.
There you go. That's called a vessel.
So we turned it, I turned it into something?
You, the company, what difference does it make? Human hands. There were human hands involved. It's not an apple that you took off from the tree.
So that an apple isn't a vessel?
An apple is not a vessel, it's a food.
Okay.
All right.
Every time you said that phrase, I was always a little bit confused.
Well, I hope now you got it.
Okay.
We're going to use that a lot, that phrase, coming up when we reach Mukseh. Okay, so now we have a halach regarding candelabras, which are very related to menorahs, Hanukkah, Chanukiot, Hanukkah menorahs, or Shabbos candelabras, or any candelabra. And that's as follows. So, ideally, if the candelabra was not lit before Shabbos, then it should have the status of Kli Shemalach D'Isser, which can be moved for its space, can be moved to make a permitted use with it. You want to put little desserts on top for everybody to take from it. I don't know. You can figure something out with it to do. That's permitted. It's mutter. However, it would seemingly be following the party line, following the rules we've already established. Over here we have a special halach. I'm not going to read it inside, but it's in Reish Ayin Tes of Ches. It's in 279 halacha 8. Right there. And that's as follows. Let's read the translated version. The candelabra, whether large or small, if made up of assembled parts, is forbidden to be moved even for the sake of using it for permitted use for its space, even though one had not lit it for the current Shabbos. Now, this doesn't make sense. This contradicts everything we've learned so far. The reason for this is because, says the Alter Rebbe, the sages suspected that perhaps it will fall from his hands and will become detached, and he will reattach it with strength and will be chayiv, liable for the building prohibition. So it's a special case scenario that applies to candelabras, that we are afraid that candelabras which are made of parts, which many are, many candelabras, okay, the cup, the holder, it is screwed in. That's called made of parts. So if it falls and it, goes off, we're afraid you may put it back in. Now, even if it doesn't go off, it'll just loosen. We're afraid you might strengthen it, which can happen. You may just, go ahead, move it a little bit, twist it a little bit, and that's the Raisa of Tikkun Kli. You just fix the vessel. On Shabbos is a prohibition of doing any action that furthers the use, the fixing of a vessel, even if it's just tightening a little screw. So the Chachamim were afraid about this, that if people would be allowed to move these menorahs made of assembled parts, they would come to transgress, so they made a special decree. So one thing's certain, halacha l'maaseh, even if your candelabra was not lit from before Shabbos, if it's made of assembled parts, it's forbidden to be moved. Now, what about if it's not made of assembled parts? It is one pure gold, silver menorah, no assembled parts. It's one piece of metal. So as the Alter Rebbe continues, furthermore, even if they are not made of assembled parts, but rather have indentations around them, thus making it appear like it's made of assembled parts, it's forbidden due to a decree that perhaps the onlooker will say that it's made of assembled parts. So I don't know why they picked so badly on these candelabras. I mean, they just went really far with the suspicions here. I don't know what the personal vendettas against candelabras were, but for whatever reason, the Chachamim saw fit and necessary to make the decree extended even to non-assembled part candelabras, single-piece candelabras, if they have indentations which it's not apparent to the onlooker that it's made of one piece. Only in a case that the candelabra is one piece and not apparent to the onlooker that it's not made of one piece, meaning it's clear, everyone sees it's clearly one piece, it would be mutter to move if it was not lit before Shabbos. And that is the final halacha regarding this.
It's mutter.
We said, even if it wasn't lit before Shabbos, only if it's made of one piece and also appears to the onlooker as if it's made of one piece. So even candlesticks are also types of candelabras. They don't have more than one holder, but they're still the same idea. You have candlesticks made of parts. So if it has indentations, even if it wasn't lit before Shabbos, you cannot move it on Shabbos. So basically every menorah that I can think of, because either they are made of assembled parts or they look like they're made of assembled parts, would be prohibited to move on Shabbos, completely Mukseh, even if you do not light them before Shabbos. You can always move with the shiur, let's not forget. That doesn't change. Even though you can technically ask, but if the worry is that it may fall and then you'll come to fix it, then it should be even also with a shiur, because what's the chances of it falling when you move it in an irregularity? Much greater. So we should even make it more strict than the regular rules of Mukseh, but nonetheless we do not find that written down, that we cannot move it with a shiur. Here in the book I did write, may one move a candelabra made of assembled parts using shiur. Here I wrote no because of the svara, and I may have to update this because on the other hand we don't find explicitly that the Chachamim assered it, and if it would be asser, it should have been mentioned in this halacha. In other words, if it has a different status than the regular Mukseh status, it should have been mentioned in this halacha. As well as, it could be when you move it with a shiur, that's itself a reminder that you can't fix it. Now, when you move it in a regular way, that itself reminds you, why am I doing this? Why doesn't this follow the regular rule of all Mukseh? Because it may fall, and I may come to fix it. So how on earth will you then come to drop it and come to fix it when the whole reason why you're moving it this way so you don't come to fix it? Right? So that itself is a reminder. Okay. We're moving from candles. Any candle questions? Wet laundry. We're almost done. We have 3 more cases left from in the Alter Rebbe. Wet laundry. So this is a question that comes up quite often, actually. A person did laundry on Erev Shabbos for whatever reason, even though Ezra instituted for laundry to be done on Thursdays, not on Erev Shabbos. So Erev Shabbos, we retain the time for setting up the table, cleaning the house, cooking the foods, and not for needing to have to go ahead and do laundry on top of that all. Nonetheless, in a time of need, it's for sure mutter to do laundry on Friday. Ezra never said it's forbidden to do laundry. It's a takana, prohibition to do laundry on Fridays. He said it's to be scheduled for Thursday, but if it happened that it's necessary on Friday, it's mutter, especially today, that doing laundry is a lot less of a tedious and time-taking task than it was back in the day. So the question is like this. If a person has wet laundry, let's say they threw in a few Shabbos shirts, socks, whatever it is, it's hanging on the line or it's in the dryer, and it is not yet dry. Shabbos is entering, it's already Bein HaShmashos. We've already discussed that. There is no prohibition in leaving, this we discussed in our first siman of this course of Shabbos. There's no prohibition in doing an action before Shabbos that will cause a halacha to happen on Shabbos, as you only have to keep Shabbos on Shabbos. You don't have to keep Shabbos before Shabbos. Right? That makes sense. So even though I'm doing an action that will cause an action of prohibition to happen on Shabbos, it ain't prohibited because I didn't do the action on Shabbos. So even though you're not allowed to put things to dry on Shabbos, and for example, let's say yesterday we had a lot of rain, if you got drenched, you can't take your coat and put it in a way of which it looks like it's being set up to dry. That's an issur d'Rabbanan. You just hang it regularly, inconspicuously. And if it dries, that's fine. But you can't spread things out on Shabbos to dry because of the gzeira of kavisa. It's marasayim. People think you did laundry on Shabbos. There's no issur of causing water to evaporate from your clothing on Shabbos. The issur is, it's forbidden to launder things on Shabbos. Now it happens to be that after you launder, you put it up to dry, or in the dryer, or on a line to dry. So when people see you doing that, they will think that you're putting up to dry. Even b'chadr chadarim, even in private, it's forbidden to spread it out to.
Because then you may come to do it in front of people? Is that what?
No, because people will think it's more to do laundry on Shabbos.
If you're private, you said you couldn't.
Even if you're in private. Whenever the sages decreed against something of Maras Ayin, that of the onlooker, even the Chedr Chadarim, even in privately decreed, these halachas are brought in chapter 3.
Even with no onlooker, in other words.
2. Even with no onlooker.
So what about the kavan? Oh, okay. Hang it up. Well, certainly when you have a wet coat like I did over Shabbos, like I guess all of us did, you hang it up normally, you're even having the kavana that you want to hang it up and show where it will dry. You have a kavana about it, regardless of if you have the intention that I want to be hanging it normally, you're hanging it up like sort of just about drying out.
It's okay, as long as you're not doing it, as long as it's not apparent that it's being done for that purpose. It's okay.
Anybody else want to?
Thank you.
Aren't you blessed?
Okay, so regarding this, 1 second, maybe it's here. Yeah, okay, this is the halacha we're looking for. Here, let's look together in Siman Shin Aleph, Sicha Vav, 301, halacha 56. If a person was walking near a puddle and he slipped and fell and all of his clothing are now wet, we're in the middle of 56, so I don't have a translation of this here, so we're by wet laundry.
Which word actually on it?
Kushapaishu. So, Kushapaishtan Me'alav. 156, yeah, you're in the right place.
What's the first line?
Over there.
Right there.
Okay, when a person got all wet, when he takes it off of his body, lo yishtechem lanagvim b'Shabbos. You should not take them off for them to dry on Shabbos, meaning you shouldn't spread them in a way that's for drying purposes. As the onlooker will say that he went ahead and laundered these clothing on Shabbos. Even to spread them in your own room in private, nobody's coming in here. It's locked with a vault. It's in the bank vault. No one's coming in except for robbers. It's aser.
What are you talking about?
Shekol davar. One second. Shekol davar she'aser chacham pnei maras ha'ayin shaleich shadu shasa is shotayos afil b'chid. As here the Alter gives us a general rule. Anything that the sages prohibited to be done due to maras ayin. Maras ayin is a general term which is called due to the onlooker. Okay, that someone may see this and come to think, oh my gosh, it's permitted to do this on Shabbos. And the maras ayin works in two ways. Maras ayin works that if I see someone doing this, I will think it's allowed. And it is all the time. People say, but I saw him doing this, and then we go ahead and do it. As if our own mistakes aren't enough, we also have to get others' mistakes. Right? It's not enough for us to have our own. So that's one aspect of maras ayin. Another aspect that goes the other way. This person knows his stuff. He's now going to suspect, look at this guy, he's an Amaretz, he doesn't know the halachas. Or he'll say, look at this guy, he's Migmachal Shabbos. He doesn't care about Shabbos. So there's two reasons behind maras ayin. And when the Chachamim made this decree, they decreed it in all scenarios, even in privacy. Even if, in truth, nobody will actually see what you're doing and there will be no worry of an onlooker, it still is forbidden. Due to the decree of the sages.
The rabbis forbid it? The Sanhedrin?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maras ayin is a Sanhedric type of prohibition.
This is sort of tangentially Mukseh. This is not necessarily a Mukseh law.
Well, we're gearing up to Mukseh.
Okay.
Before, in like many of these cases, just like the broom case, before I go into telling you if it's Mukseh or not, we have to first go through the background of what's the status of this clothing. what's up with the clothing. What's the halachas behind this?
What, the clothing?
Yeah, we're dealing with here if your clothing got wet, can you spread them on Shabbos for them to dry? So, there is even in privacy, there's a suspicion, a friend will come over, you want to show them something in your room, they'll see it, they won't ask you anything, but they'll think, then it's mutter, the Maris Haim will still apply. So they just made a status quo, no exceptions, it's just forbidden. It's better that way, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, it's always usher. So they forbid it in all places. Okay. Nun Zayin.
You go a little slower. You review what you just said, or
yeah, I'm mentioning the important points.
Right.
They only forbade. They only forbade to spread it on Shabbos itself. But if they were already around from before Shabbos, as I said, you did laundry on Friday, you didn't have a choice, or you did on Thursday, you just never took it off the line, right? You don't have to remove it on Shabbos. They didn't go that far and say, due to Marasayan, you can't have any clothing on the rack into Shabbos because somebody will see, oh my gosh, he did laundry on Shabbos.
But it was just drying.
It's worse.
But it was just drying.
Unless he interviewed you and said, this is a pre-Shabbos thing, but it's worse.
But it was just drying from the sun. No,
The Chachamim didn't go that far. They didn't go that far. And I guess also they're more picking on the action of seeing you spread the clothing on the line. But on Shabbos they forbade you to spread it in any case, even if it's just very sweaty. It's not wet at all. You're walking in Miami, there's no sun showers that day, you got really sweaty, your shirt is perspired, it's full of sweat. You want to hang it up to dry, not on Shabbos. You can hang it up in as you're hanging anything up, but not to dry. Okay.
So you can't hang it on Shabbos, you're saying?
No,
if it were dry.
If it's dry,
if it's wet,
dry, you can hang it to dry.
If it was wet, you couldn't put it down on the rack.
You could put it down somewhere. It just can't be in a way that it looks like you're doing it to dry. There's a certain way when people do laundry that they spread things out for drying purposes.
All right.
Okay. Nun ches, Naya. Here's our main punchline. Begad ashur b'mayim afil en shemel ashur me'etes as alag v'samuch la'esh af b'shen shit chela sham elo menag v'sham cheshu lovish bo yishen kan marasayin af yikan asher b'shul shemayim. Okay, that's fine. Nun tes begad ashur b'mayim asala tal telech shbashim elav. A clothing that is soaked in water, it's forbidden to move it once you take it off your body. This is now an additional halach. Before we discuss spreading it out to dry, here we're discussing if it's mukseh. A wet clothing, once it's taken off your body, you're now allowed to move it. Why? Shema yishkach yischetenu. Maybe he will forget and come to squeeze it.
Wait, say the case again. For some reason, I'm done thinking this.
It's on Shabbos. You take wet clothes off your
You're walking outside there of Shabbos. You get drenched.
We had that
from
already.
the rain.
No, on Shabbos.
Okay. And then you come into the house.
Yeah.
So you're wet.
And you're wet.
Yeah.
You take off your clothes.
You just can't squeeze
We
it.
just
You
had
took
that
off
case
your wet kapata,
Yeah.
completely drenched wet kapata, and
Yeah.
put it on the chair. Your wife comes in and you said, Yehuda, come on. Here.
Is it what?
So then you tell her, here. I
Here,
can't
what?
move it anymore.
Can't move it. Didn't we have the case when you said the thing about the guy in Miami? That was the same thing. You drenched.
Well, now I give another example. Even if it's drenched just from sweat, you cannot spread it to dry.
You just
This
have
is
to
the same-
let
this
it
is the
drop
same-
into a
it's
pile.
the same
This
law.
is- this
Rain-
now?
rain
Moving
down-
along.
Oh,
We started off discussing the laws of drying,
yeah.
and we moved on to discuss the laws of moving.
Moving things that are wet.
Exactly.
Well, now we are in the Mukseh category.
Yes,
Now
we
we're in the
are.
Mukseh
We
zone.
just made our way.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Sham Yesh Chassid, the reason is not because it's mukt, it's not that this clothing suddenly becomes a non-clothing, metamorphosizes to become a Mukseh machmas gufay item.
It's a vessel.
On Shabbos. It's a vessel. What's wrong? It's a good decree, just like we just learned right now that and this is, let's point this out. What we introduced earlier about the candelabra is really, it's a new type of Mukseh we never heard of before. It's not following the rules, it's not following the reasons of Mukseh, I should really say. Not following the typical common reasons we already introduced, or why things are Mukseh, why they come, but rather it's a personal case example of decrees due to that you may come to do a malacha. So they made it completely mukseh. So to here,
And the
since you
malacha
may
is
It's
come,
the category of Mukseh, but it's not a Mukseh.
Correct.
item.
And the malacha that you could do is drying, in other words. The malacha that you could do
no
is the drying.
squeezing there,
Oh,
squeezing.
squeezing.
Yes, you may come to squeezing.
But you also could
Shema
come to drying.
Yishkach, no, they didn't make go that far. You can't move a wet beged because you make them to dry with yourself derabbanan.
You could spread it out.
How far are you going to suspect? How far are you going to go with
We
this?
just went out of our way to talk about how spreading conspicuously is a bad.
So they
thing.
decreed against that
But it
because of
wasn't-
the onlooker, but they're not going to decree. You can't even move it because you may come to dry it, and then if you dry it, something the onlooker may come. There's limitations of how far.
But it
we
wasn't
Squeezing
Mukseh
is not so far.
Ben Ishmoses.
Oh, okay, that's another point. It's not Mukseh ben Hashmah. So I
The
said
squeezing's
it's
actually
not
malacha.
following. Squeezing
No.
is an actual malacha, correct? Squeezing is an
more
actual malacha. So it's a direct decree. Usually, decrees are made to protect the biblical. Usually, we don't make decrees to protect the rabbinical. The rabbinical itself is a decree to protect the biblical. If we had to make decrees to protect the rabbinical, then you have to make a decree to protect the decree to protect the rabbinical to protect the biblical. There's no end. There's no end.
Why are you allowed to take the garment off to begin with then? The wet garment, you're allowed to put it
You want to
somewhere.
stay wet the whole Shabbos?
Okay, so have mercy. See, if you take it off, you put it down wherever, and then you're not allowed to move it again. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously when you take it off, you have to grab it from an area that's as dry as possible that won't come to squeeze. Okay, so take it off from a dry spot, hopefully, maybe from the inside. Try to find a dry spot. Elam kenu beged sheinu makbid al meima v'af b'chol hayaseichtoi oy she'en bei el shriya moletishin derech haba mitzvah. Okay,
Wait a second.
so one thing is clear that we learn from this.
No, sir.
This is Siman Sif Nun Tes, which means not. So let's not interrupt. Let's wait till the end.
You were interrupting my question. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's always subjective. Yes. Okay, so let's wait till the end. Hopefully, it'll be understood. So right now, we just introduced clearly that a wet garment, if it's that wet that you grab it and water will literally squeeze out. So it's not a typical case where you went outside, you got a little wet. We're talking about you got really drenched. Okay, so you can take it off. You can't put it out to dry. Put it down wherever you want in the beginning, but once you put it down, you can't move it because of the decree. Now let's go back to our original case. So that's done with already. Let's go back to our
Not
original
done
case.
with- Yeah, my coat, I was drenched. I kind of allowed to put it back on after leaving the kiddush yesterday with my drenched coat. I was allowed to put it back on to go home with
Was
it.
it drenched to the point that if you grab it, water would come out and get
Squeezes.
squeezed?
Probably
I
not.
just
but it could
answered
have
your
gotten-
question.
But it could get there.
Everything could get there. If I dip it in water, it could get there. Everything potentially.
in water, how much it was raining. That was my.
Which is like why you can't go swimming on Shabbos, because you could squeeze the towel.
No, that's actually a different decree.
That's because of
They
sucking
found
up.
a different one. Yeah, it was a different one for that. But yes, that is true. That's why you can't take showers on Shabbos, and then it's because you make them to squeeze your hair.
Okay.
Yes, that is true. But the towel is actually dealt with in this sif right here. Okay. So it was wet before Shabbos. Mukseh, you may come to squeeze. Right? The whole Bein Hashmashos, it was wet. You may come to squeeze. Maybe we should apply the rule. If it's Mukseh before Shabbos, then it's Mukseh for the entire Shabbos. So this beautiful Shabbos pants that I just, or kapata, they have kapata today that you can put in the wash. You put it in the wash, you're going to have a brand new, beautiful kapata ready for Shabbos morning. It was wet, Bein Hashmashos. It was clearly Mukseh. You can squeeze it, water would come out. What do you do? Is it Mukseh or not on Shabbos itself? So it would seem from what we just read, and then following the rules we established of Bein Hashmashos, that it would be Mukseh. However, we then find a contradictory ruling in chapter 6:13, Taryag, Tafresh Yud Gimel, Sif Yud Gimel, quite easy to remember. Yud Gimel, right? Taryag, Yud Gimel. And there the author says the following. Let's read the translation. It's not in this book, it's in Chelik Dalet. From the letter of the law, it is permitted to soak a cloth in water on Erev Shabbos and remove it from the water before Shabbos and let it dry out until it no longer contains enough water to get another item wet enough to get something else wet, and he may then wipe his face, hands, and legs with it in order to cool off. Even though he is not doing so in order to remove dirt, but rather to receive pleasure, less spring from the letter of law, being that a towel is dry from water, explained in chapter 554. Nevertheless, in Yom Kippur, one is to be stringent, being that if one were to clean himself with a cloth that was not dried from its water, it would contain a biblical prohibition to the squeezing. Therefore, one is to be stringent even by a cloth which is dry from water and which were on it from before Yom Kippur, to decree that perhaps it will not be dry well, and one will clean with it and come to squeeze. In simple English,
Might not be
that's
dry
what that
enough.
means.
Might not be dry enough when you squeeze it.
The Alter Rebbe here said, min hadin, okay, if it's wet, even before Shabbos, it's wet, completely wet. You squeeze, you touch it, you grab it, water will come out. It's permitted to use on Shabbos once it becomes dry. Knocking off what it says here.
Get the check.
Here
It's
it
dry.
says when it's wet, it's Mukseh, which would make us think if it was wet then during Bein HaShmashos it would be Mukseh the whole Shabbos. Here he says in chapter 6:13, halacha 13, that once it becomes dry, you can use it. So this is, in other words, that since this halacha is not following the general reasons of Mukseh, but it's a personal decree that you may comes to squeeze, we're going to limit the prohibition of moving it only to when the decree is applicable, which is when you may come to squeeze it. Once it's dry, then the decree no longer applies and it becomes permitted to be moved. Now he says here, regarding over Yom Kippur, we're being stringent. Why? Because perhaps you'll take it before it's dry enough and you'll come to squeeze water and transgress. So on Yom Kippur you should be stringent. Now what about Shabbos? In general, Shabbos and Yom Kippur have all identical laws regarding malacha. They're exactly the same. Whatever you can't do on Shabbos, you can't do on Yom Kippur. So maybe we should say the same thing. The only difference is, another thing, you should be stringent not to move the clothing on Shabbos. Because maybe you'll come to move it when it's not dry enough. However, in truth, there's a difference. Here we're discussing a person putting the clothing on his body to feel the coolness of it, to feel the coldness. That's what the chapter is talking about. You're not going to bathe yourself on Yom Kippur. Can you take a damp cloth and put it on your body to cool yourself off? So if it's dry enough that it won't get you wet, it's mutter, but it's still cold. So this is something that's unique to Yom Kippur. However, to Shabbos itself, you're just trying to wear your clothing. You're not trying to pat it on yourself and make yourself cool off. And therefore, there's no reason to apply this decree. Practically, this halach is discussed amongst Poskim Manenu, Poskim of today, and they rule the following. If the Mishnah Berurah also discusses this in chapter 308. The Mishnah Berurah says the following. If it was wet during Bein HaShmashos, it's Mukseh the whole Shabbos.
Even if it's dry.
Even if it's dry. Clearly from the Alter Rebbe, we cannot accept that. So, and this is not just the Alter Rebbe, this is the Mechaber, everyone accepts this ruling. It's not a debated ruling. So how do we understand the Mishnah Berurah? So the person explained the following. In a case that you knew it was going to dry on Shabbos, so you already knew by Bein HaShmashos that it would be usable, it would be ready. In that case, it's not Mukseh.
That's how the Alter Rebbe.
We can say also that the Alter Rebbe holds that way. Here it's talking about a case that you dipped it before Shabbos in order so it would dry on Shabbos so you can use it. So you knew before Shabbos when it was wet that it would be dry on Shabbos.
So even the Mishnah Berurah is okay with that.
So that's what they said. It's like another Poskim Manenu. That's how they establish in the case that it's mutter because it's discussing that you know and you plan on using it after it dries and it's going to dry on Shabbos.
What about the general rule of things that are dangerous?
All right, so that's what we're saying. The general rule of things that are Mukseh Bein HaShmashos, well, I already explained before that we'll only apply that rule. We'll only apply that rule if by the regular Mukseh laws. This is not a regular Mukseh case. This is a case of a special decree. It's a vessel. The clothing are a vessel.
But in general, when something's...
Correct, in general. So that's what we're compromising with. That only in the case that you did not know that it would get dried on Shabbos. And it happened, the sun came out today, and wow, I expected this to only be ready for next Shabbos. And look at this, it's already ready, for the Shabbos.
Is this a chumrah from the? Is this a chumrah that you can't use it?
Well, we're saying you can use it in the end.
No, you can't.
If you know it's going to be dry, you can use it.
If you're not sure.
What about something in general that is Bein HaShmashos?
Yeah,
It's
correct.
Mukseh,
In general, we
and
rule
then-
Mukseh the whole
then
Shabbos.
if it doesn't, then it turns not on Shabbos, for whatever reason. There are cases like
Right,
that
yeah,
that doesn't.
remember we had a whole chapter
Right,
on this.
so
We
what?
said there that it remains Mukseh.
Okay,
It
fine.
could rain too. It could get wet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is a special exception.
Yes. No.
I mean, we had a special exception to make it muktzeh, so we can have a special exception to make it not muktzeh. Right? It works both ways. Okay. Any questions on wet clothing? I think, no.
Generally, you just can't squeeze it. That's the basic idea.
That's
Right?
the question.
You can't move it, you can't squeeze it.
Right. And let's point out the reality of things is that usually if you have a good washing machine, the spin makes sure to squeeze out enough water that it won't be that damp, that to the touch water will squeeze out, I think.
Spreading is still a problem. right?
Could you,
100%. Spreading is still a problem.
let's say you put,
But right, it won't be that wet to that
The
extent.
squeezing won't be an issue.
if you put it in the dryer before Shabbos,
Oh,
could you
yeah.
take it out of the dryer, or is it
Okay,
moving
good
things that are
point. Okay,
Mukseh?
so
That's a question.
so as I started saying earlier, that it's mutter to do a malacha before Shabbos. You can break Shabbos before Shabbos starts. You can break Shabbos today. There's no prohibition in doing that, and therefore you're allowed to set it up in your dryer before Shabbos. However, we did mention earlier from Ishmael Bays in our first class that we had on the subject that only applies to non-noise making machines. If it's a noise making machine, then it announces to the world, hey, this neighbor's dryer is on, and that the Chachamim prohibited. So it all depends on what type of dryer you have. Do you have a quiet, modest dryer, doesn't bother anyone, or do you have a dryer that announces to the whole world? So
Dishwasher too, same issue?
in most dryers make noise. So
But
most
you would
dryers
be-
it would not be okay. You can't leave it in it into Shabbos. You have to shut off for Shabbos.
No, if it's off before Shabbos.
Oh, it's already off. If
you
it's
open
already
it up
off
and
before
take out the
Shabbos,
clothes?
that's not a problem at all.
It's
Yes.
not, there's no issue of moving
Because the
the
dryer
clothes.
would be a klisha malach de isser,
You can open the door as long as no
and you
lights
can
turn
open
on.
the door. Correct. No lights turn on.
So you can
open
take it
the
out of the
door,
Open
take
the door
it
of the
out.
dryer and get the dry clothes.
You just can't fold the other clothes.
Dishwasher too, by the way, you can't, if it makes noise, the same thing as the dryer?
You're correct. If it makes noise, you cannot leave it into Shabbos.
You
Shut
can't
off
leave it
for
on.
Shabbos.
You can put it on before Shabbos, man.
If it won't make noise, if it's quiet,
If it's going to make noise, you can't put it on at all.
not before, not into Shabbos.
It's going to be disrupting Shabbos.
Because people know, people hear. That's the thing. Anything
I've
that
never
people
heard a dryer that is so quiet that you can't hear it operating.
Right.
Well, like a separate laundry room.
Something
Yes,
more expensive.
we have an expensive one, and it's still, you
You
hear.
got to get a silencer.
Same thing with dishes, if they're already dry before Shabbos in the dishwasher, as long as you don't have, and then once the door was left, the jar opens and no lights are gonna turn on, you could take something out and like even jostle
Correct.
the inside of the
It's
dishwasher.
considered a klish malach de isser. It's used for other things. Many people put things on top of their dryers. They use it to like a table. It's definitely, not. We wouldn't consider a mixed malachas kesser and kiss. We consider klish malach de isser, even though it's expensive, and therefore there's no problem in opening the door and taking something out.
Dishwasher,
Is the
right?
idea that it
Yeah,
could,
so
dis-
traditional.
could disrupt Shabbos because of the noise?
No, that's not the reason.
So what's the reason?
The reason is because people, again, Marasan, people will hear it and say, hey, did you hear Pliny Almighty? He's doing dishes on Shabbos.
Okay.
He's doing laundry on Shabbos. He's drying his clothing on Shabbos. That's the.
But if it's like a separate laundry room that's nowhere near anything,
But we already said, once they decreed, Maris Ayin, even in private, remember?
even in private, it wouldn't be allowed? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So a spreading issue has nothing to do with Mishnah. The coat that you're not allowed to spread in an obvious drying way is nothing to do
I didn't
with
know
Mishnah
that.
yet. That's just
No,
the
no, no.
basis.
Yeah.
The squeezing thing does.
Yes.
That's the squeezing issue.
Squeezing is an issa deraisa of schita, of mefarik, which could be deraisa, and because of that, they decreed against moving it.
And the spreading is not, that's a rabbinic. The spreading,
Correct,
that's
that's
the
rabbinic.
reason why it's different.
But it does depend on how loud it is. If it's in private and it's not loud, it would be allowed. Right?
If it's not loud, even in public, it's mutter.
Oh,
Okay. Books. This is our last MMI category from the Shulchan Aruch, and then we're going to other questions and answers. Okay, so we have discussed in the past that not everything is mutter to read on Shabbos. We have in chapter 307 a whole list of laws regarding if you're allowed to move, if you're allowed to read things, and what you're allowed to read on Shabbos and what not.
not to read.
And the general rule is that you can only read on Shabbos things that are Torah oriented or are wisdom oriented. It's actually debated if you can read non-Torah wisdom books on Shabbos, such as mathematics, science, read a report on climate change, etc., for or against, if you can do that on Shabbos. And it's a machlekes rishonim, and the custom is to permit doing so. So mathematics, science, and debate, is climate change science? Is it made up? It depends which report. When you say it's not science, it's fiction, right? They say you can't read it on Shabbos.
Just because it's wisdom, some form of wisdom, that's right.
Wisdom is permitted, yes. But if it's not wisdom,
Fiction, you can't read.
if it's not wisdom, let's say a novel, a Stephen King novel, okay? So you can't read it on Shabbos. You're going to read it on Shabbos. Or any novel, even if it's written by a kosher author with kosher characters. The character is not Phil, his name is Moshe and Aaron, but it's a novel. You're not reading Tanakh, you're not reading the Bible, you're reading a made-up story.
Did you read it during the week?
During the week. Someone who doesn't have an Isser Bittul Torah for sure can read it during the week. If there's an Isser Bittul Torah.
Well, for what? Like for health or something? For health or
The
healing?
theme of wisdom in the novel, there's
So if there's a Musar Haskell, a lesson in service of God that can be learned from it, then it's permitted. But a lot of secular novels, the lesson of the Avodas Hashem is quite often what you're not allowed to do.
It's still going away from bad and turning
that
to
even
good.
during the week is forbidden.
Moshe,
Very clear. Let's read it inside. It's in 307. I didn't say anything about newspapers yet.
I want to know about that.
Let's first just deal with the original
Novels.
halacha. Let's look in.
It's a good class.
Let's look at halacha lama, then we'll go back to 28. Okay, let's look at 30. 307 30. All the books of it's in volume 3, by the way. This translation of this time is I only brought it in the Mukseh, which is so too to read history books, learning about the battle of 1812, learning about the War of Independence, etc., etc. All the different Sifrei Milchames, battle books, war books. Reading history about the Roman Empire, so to reading all the different literature of mundane material, basically novels, in short, in Sifrei Emmanuel, such as the book called Emmanuel. Emmanuel was a book.
Science fiction?
Science fiction?
Yeah.
Emmanuel? The book of Emmanuel?
No, just in general.
Oh, science fiction. Science fiction, I don't see how that's any different than novels.
What's it?
Sefer Emmanuel was an old book that was written, it's called Sifra Chitzayim, external books. In the Talmud we find reference to it. The status of Sifra Chitzayim, the external books, which are basically books that may have been written in Hebrew, they may look like that they're Jewish-oriented, but really they're just, it can be, like I said before, like a novel. Sefer Emmanuel, I remember I looked into it in the past. I may have even read it, probably in the bathroom. But it's not a novel. I think it's more, it's like secular wisdom, okay?
Because you can't bring Lashon Kodesh in the bathroom.
It's a machlekes.
Oh, really?
Loud or
Yes.
not allowed, this category?
So he says no. And it goes without saying that books of romance or other matters that are forbidden according to Torah, also the Christ on the Shabbos, it is forbidden to read on Shabbos, even to read it with your eyes, without
Actually
reiterating, without verbalizing the words. It's forbidden. Gzeira, due to a decree, Mishum Shtori Hedyotis. The Chachamim made a decree that if people were allowed to read books, they may come to edit them on Shabbos. It's really edit.
So it's not the content really that's the problem, or is it content?
I mean, for me, I really
You can edit a
understand.
Torah book, you edit them all the time, so that would be...
Sometimes I'm reading a book on Shabbos, with my fingers.
So Torah books would also be not allowed, but based on that.
Oh, so 1 second, right. So they didn't make the decree by Torah books. What are you supposed to do? Sit on Shabbos like this and do nothing? So the actual real decree is only against Shtari Hadyotis, which means documents that people would edit and write on. And therefore they made a decree against anything
Like a
that's...
lease or something, a legal document.
Yeah, exactly. And even during the week it's forbidden to read these books due to Meishav Leitzim. It's due to the Isser of Bittul Torah, of wasting your time with foolish stuff.
Where is it?
Right here. Just because they're written in Hebrew doesn't make it kosher. So even if the novel is written in Lashon HaKodesh, like Sefer Emmanuel, it's in Lashon HaKodesh. Roman history, it's written by a Hebrew university, by a professor.
But if it has a moral,
Leave that there, I'll put this in.
But maybe it was written by a Jew and it sparks the holiness.
That doesn't mean that you can
No,
make
you can
So-
listen.
Right.
so I've got an example. We used to sell Uncle Tom's Cabin written in Yiddish.
Right, I remember that. What's Uncle Tom's? Remind me.
The
Is it a
Harriet
novel?
Beecher Stowe, it's a novel about
Novel.
slavery and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And there are strong moral lessons in there about anti-slavery.
So we can finish.
But you could also
Right, we didn't
learn-
finish that halacha.
Okay, oh, okay.
So the fact that it's written in Hebrew doesn't make it kosher. That's
Right,
okay.
I know it's so.
Just like by food, just because it says chazer in Hebrew doesn't mean it's kosher chazer, right? Now, if it's matters of romance that entice the inclination, which many secular books contain that, and movies, so there is a further prohibition, even if written in Hebrew. That a person entices his evil inclination onto himself. And those who wrote it, and those who print it, and it goes without saying those who, distribute it, they are included in the category of those who cause the public to sin.
Amazon's in trouble, no?
Amazon is not doing everything according to Torah. Those books of history, that from them come out lessons in Musar, in ethics, and in fear of heaven, such as the book of Josephus,
Really?
Sefer Yosifun,
Really?
the Kayetzabay and the like, Mutter lekrois mafilu b'Shabbos.
Mutter,
It is
huh?
permitted to read them even on Shabbos, afilu ksuvim belaz, even if it's written in English.
These are
Very
Torah books, no?
interesting.
They're stories.
Josephus is not a Torah book.
What is it?
It was originally written in Latin.
French.
What is it?
Josephus.
Josephus?
French.
I've heard of
Latin.
what's Josephus.
Huh?
Ashkenaz is
Oh, Laz. Yeah, even if it's written right in Laz, correct.
in French, German.
He says, nonetheless, a person shouldn't spend a lot of his time dealing with it. It's not healthy.
What's Josephus?
Not too
Josephus
much.
is the romance novel?
No, Josephus is
No.
a 1,000-book history
Of what?
of the Jews.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it.
Surely you should read it. It's
Yeah,
basic
maybe.
history.
1,000-page.
Pages.
It's one of the oldest history books available.
Oh, they're saying because it's history that they wouldn't.
No, not just because it's
Why
history,
they
because it
bring
has
up-
good lessons to read the War of 1812. What happened in America versus the French versus the British.
It's a Jewish
Knowing
perspective
what
on
color
history.
horse George Washington had when he went out to battle. What difference does that make in Yaakov Hashem? What do you need to know that? So that, it says you're not allowed to read. Continues next week.
Psychology books.
It's Chachma.
It's okay.
Certainly it's
Psychology.
Chachma. Anything of Chachma, we'll have to continue to the next halacha.
Even if it's
Anything
secular.
of Chachma, yeah, there's also Chachma.
You're allowed to read
secular,
on Shabbos.
sure. That's the minimum.
I have a book of psychological issues in the Torah.
A book called Psychological.
Yeah.
Analyzing